call to order. Reminder, anyone speaking needs to activate their mic in front of them. George, remember to do that. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, if you've been sitting in the room for a few minutes, you've been watching us running around a little frantically. We have one member out sick. We have one member who resigned. We have at least one member who went to the wrong location. So we're trying to get as much done before one more member has to leave to go to see his daughter perform in the concert at the high school tonight. So with that said, can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Any complaints, errors, concerns? All those in favor? Any opposed? Carries 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 0. All right, really quickly, we have a new student representative just voted in today. Araya, if you'd like to introduce our new representative for the coming year.
Yes, this is Sarah. Hi, Sarah Heon. I'm a junior this year, and I'll be the representative starting next year.
Congratulations and welcome.
That's awesome.
All right, we are going to take public input. As long as we can, we do have one item of business that we absolutely have to handle in non-public before Raleigh leaves. So if one of our other members does not make it in, we will have to pause public input at that time in order to do that. But in the meantime, we'll start with public input. Please try and hold it to 3 minutes per person. Come up to the mic and state your name and address for the record and make sure that you push the mic on when you do it. Ready, go.
If it's green, it's on. Is that right? Yes. Green means go. Good evening. I'm Jennifer McCauley, 296 Paco Avenue here in Keene. I'm here as a proud parent of two public school kids, soon to be just one because he's going to college. I'm here to ask you to reconsider your compliance with the vaguely worded, legally questionable, and morally reprehensible anti-student and parent letter from the DOE. I've known the board and Superintendent Millay to stand up to bullies and to stand up for students who've been targeted in our schools. I've also seen you stand up for our teachers and parents, trusting them to serve in the best interests of our kids in ways that account for kids' and families' needs. Signing onto this letter is endorsing vague threats from an administration bent on destroying public schools that is not so vaguely threatening immigrants and LGBTQI kids across this great country. There's a lawsuit that will band you together with other school districts. If ever there was a time to stand up to bullies, this is it. Authoritarians only take power when it is conceded by people and institutions. This administration and the movement behind it does not have full power yet. The letter you signed was vague by design because the DOE is testing the fences to see who will comply in advance. We can still act to stand up for our kids and our schools. Please rescind your signature and join the lawsuit. History and a whole bunch of grateful kids and parents will thank you.
Jen also is rushing out to get to the concert.
Okay, great. Hi. First, I just want to thank you all for the time that you give to this community, especially those of you who are volunteer folks on the board, but also to those who serve the school through the business office. My name is Anya Dedanen. I live in Keene. I have two kids in schools, one at the middle school in 7th grade and one in 10th grade at the high school. In April, the New Hampshire Department of Education circulated the federal government's anti-DEI Dear Colleague letter to all superintendents in the state. It presents with questionable legality and unclear expectations, yet the superintendent signed the letter to assure that DEI is not being administered. Was legal counsel consulted prior to signing the letter? Public school, when done well, is DEI. Ensuring free, appropriate public education requires that public schools engage in diversity, equity, and inclusion, as well as accessibility. It is said that the district follows all laws relating to civil rights and equal educational opportunities and does not discriminate. However, it is also known that the Trump administration is trying to change legal understandings of DEI and accessibility. There are court cases, including in New Hampshire, fighting this anti-DEI letter and its threats because of its legal ramifications. Right now, we still have functioning courts. There are individuals and families who are scared, terrified even. We know that the Trump administration has targets on so many in our population, including those they would call non-productive, LGBTQI+, immigrants, people of color, activists, and more. We wonder what this district, the superintendent, and the school board are prepared to do to protect the privacy and safety of our students. Say this administration, left unchecked, demands you turn over private student data, such as IEPs of all the special ed students, immigration statuses, and LGBTQI identities for funding withdrawal purposes, or worse, such as autism registries. Will you comply without question? How will you defend student privacy and their safety? Because surely at that point, the courts will be broken to the point of not being able to help. Clearly, the hour is later than you realize. There are families, my own included, who need to know what you are prepared to do to protect our children from the harms that could be brought to bear. I ask that Superintendent Millay rescind his signature on the anti-DEI letter and instead join other districts in supporting the ACLU and NEA lawsuit fighting back. Additionally, I ask that this school board create a new intergenerational diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility advisory committee of parents, students, and concerned community members to support the Keene School District and SAU 29 in building truly inclusive learning environments for all. Stand up for diversity, equity, and inclusion and accessibility today, because tomorrow it will be too late. Thank you.
Thank you, Anya.
I guess it's on. Hi, my name is Rose Condanis. I live at 22 Woodbury Street. My 40-year-old daughter went through the Keene schools, and I am very pleased with the education that she got. She was a Title I student, and there are a lot of children in our community who have the advantages of whether it be Title I or Title VI. The problem is that we've got, as Anya Dananan said, we are in a situation in which things are being redefined. The certification was signed in September, but now we have another certification letter that had to be signed a second time that includes the issue of DEI as to whether or not we are in compliance, I guess would be the appropriate term. The problem is that we don't know what that means. Maybe you do, and if you do, you can tell us, okay? But what are anti-DEI initiatives that you do not have in SAU 29? Because I'd like to know what they are. What are the initiatives that we are not, we do not have? I don't know what that means. I have several questions. If we acknowledge racial disparities, is that racism? I don't know the answer. If we help English learners catch up, Is that favoritism? According to DEI, it may be. If we give a disabled child a reading aid, are we denying someone else the chance to struggle equally? What is your official statement or stand on IEPs? Because there are a lot of children in our community that have these IEPs, individual educational programs. And I know that you all know all about this, and so I hope that you'll help us tonight and perhaps in the future to clarify this. I agree with Anya's requests to have a committee on these issues, which I think would be very helpful in terms of the communication of the school board with the community. So thank you for listening.
It's on. I'm Katie Delaney. I live at 621 West Street in Keene. This country is currently experiencing great challenges. Every change affects someone. For some, the changes feel good and positive. For others, the same changes feel like the end of too many things that are good. One current flashpoint is the concept of DEI and DEIA. It is of grave concern that there is, in this time of crisis and division, any notion of removing DEI from the forefront of our American ideology or from the curriculum in any school. What's the point? It seems just another way to foster more and greater division. That benefits no one. Every day we practice diversity, equity, and inclusion actually without much attention. It has become just the manifestation of non-discriminatory laws and practices. Access makes those laws and practices available to everyone who needs them in order to be included in American society, most of us. Discrimination on the basis of race, gender, religion, or other ways of separating the differences among people is not only illegal and wrong, but in contrast, discrimination provides excuses for mistreatment and neglect. The opposite is true of diversity, and through it, we employ choices and varied solutions to problems. We advance when more than one idea prevails. It is therefore productive to treat people who provide ideas, solutions, and other resources as equal. Diversity means that all the people, all the groups are included, that they are not ignored. For example, access means that there are cutouts in sidewalks for wheelchairs, baby carriages, and shopping carts. Access might mean simply that people who face difficulty walking have a place to park near the stores where they spend their money, or visit places of service or worship. These are just some ways of treating each other well. It is an embarrassment to capitulate to expectations that our children may not be allowed to learn how to behave with grace, courtesy, and compassion for other people. What they learn as children will follow them through their life. It is further embarrassment and an injustice that a decision to sign a capitulation document would be done without input of the community, the people who are directly affected. I too hope that the signatures will be rescinded. Thank you.
Hi, Jason Washer, 8 Roosevelt Street in Keene. I want to start by saying that I appreciate that the topic of DEI and the education department's general assurance requirements made it onto the agenda for tonight. I recognize that it's a difficult decision that has long-ranging consequences, not the least of which is the potential loss of federal funding for the states and the schools that choose not to comply with it. I do hope that the federal judge's recent order to temporarily pause the administration's DEI demands in New Hampshire, along with the examples of the other school districts which have joined with the ACLU and the NEA in the suit against the education department, brings you some comfort and assurance that if you do choose to make this difficult decision and take a stand, you won't be standing alone. New Hampshire versus the DEA argues that the government's order is unconstitutional, that the education department has overstepped its authority, limited academic freedom, and is dictating curriculum. The suit also argues that the education department directive violates the First Amendment by restricting teachers' abilities to teach and students' right to learn. Tonight, the board is also reviewing the district's bullying policy. That policy and many others will likely be influenced in no small way by the decision you make tonight. What could happen if a transgender student is being bullied and needs support? Or what if that student wants to use the bathroom of the gender they identify with? Or what if a teacher giving a lesson acknowledges that there is a racial discrimination in the United States? Could you be forced to discipline them? Will teachers be required to address students by their biological names instead of their preferred names? And what kind of damage can that do? Page 4 of the document references two of the executive orders. The first one there is called Ending Radical and Wasteful DEI Programs and Preferencing, which is demanding the immediate termination of all DEI programs under whatever names they might appear under. So how many school clubs and programs could be affected by that? Likely the Pride Club, but what else? The SAU just hired a new Director of Human Resources, whose official title is Director of Human Resources, Title IX, and Affirmative Action Officer. His title will have to change, and likely what he's doing during the day will have to change, since he can no longer do affirmative action. The second executive order on page 4 of the document is titled Defending Women from Gender Ideology Extremism and Restoring Biological Truth to the Federal Government. That order restricts bathroom and locker room space, demands that people are referenced only by their biological gender, and retracts a number of government and Department of Education guidelines. A couple of the guidelines that are being retracted, or have been retracted already, the Department of Education Toolkit, Creating Inclusive and Non-Discriminatory School Environments for LGBTQI Students. The U.S. Department of Education, Supporting LGBTQI and Youth and Families in School. Another one is Supporting Intersex Students, a resource for students, families, and educators. Also supporting transgender youth in school. And finally, Confronting Anti-LGBTQ and Harassment in Schools, a resource for students and families. Those are no longer active policies with the Department of Education. I understand that when school funding is threatened, it may seem easier to comply, but I urge you to take a moment and give some serious thought as to what the Education Department is asking of you today, and what they'll ask of you next week and next year. And I'm really looking forward to hearing your discussion tonight about this. And I do appreciate, again, that this was added to the agenda in the first place. And I would urge you to take the next step and join in the lawsuit that is opposing these demands. Thank you.
Emily Benson, 89 Kendall Road here in Keene, and I will speak briefly. I really just want to underline what's already been said by the last few speakers. I agree with everything that's been said. I am a business leader in this community and also involved in a number of nonprofit organization boards and other leadership, so I do understand the huge pressure to protect funding. And I'm certainly seeing this happen in other organizations too, where the DEI language is sort of quietly being dropped and just hoping that we can drop the language, but our behavior will remain the same. But language matters, and the words here represent a real commitment to fairness, belonging, and support for all students. And when we remove those words or back away from them, we send a message that those values no longer matter. I really hope that this district will show some leadership here, and instead of just going along, we can show other districts that it's possible and important to push back even when it's uncomfortable. And saying we're still inclusive isn't enough if we're also signing letters that suggest otherwise. Our students are watching, and they deserve better than the current federal administration and the current Department of Education, and I know that we can do better here in this district. Thank you.
If it's green, it means it's still on. All right. My name is Chelsea Edgecombe. I live in Keene, and I am the parent of a Keene Middle School student. Most of these folks have already said a lot of the things I came up here to say, so I'm going to skip over all that. And I want to talk about what happened at Keene Middle School last week. 8 brave students decided they were going to have a sit-in. They talked about it. They went to the school and said, what are the consequences for peaceful protest? They were told none. They were not given any time limits. They weren't given any rules to follow. 8 students sat in the front lobby with 4 poster board signs. They were not making a ton of noise or being disruptive, nor were they seen by any other student. The school locked down the front entryway and disrupted their own students so that these students would not be seen. And then accused the students of being disruptive and told them that they needed to go back to class by the end of 3rd period, which was probably about 15 minutes from when they were told that. Some of the students went back to class, some of them didn't. Some of them were angry enough that they wanted to go home and were trying to reach their parents at the time that they were given out-of-school suspension for 2 days. I feel like this comes back to our First Amendment rights, but above and beyond that, these students were lied to and misled and aren't being heard. And I feel like this, in combination with the DEI things, is a slippery slope. Like, what kind of message do we want to teach our children about their voices being heard, about their right to peaceful protest, for their right to come up here and discuss things like DEI and their place in the community? And I think that we want to really think hard about what side of history we want to land on. What is it that we're teaching our students? Because it's certainly not empathy or compassion or how to accomplish things, how to make your voice heard. And that's really it. Everything else was said. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that wishes to speak tonight? We do still have about 10 minutes open for public input.
Hi, Daniel Smith, 80 High Street here in Keene. Going back to what Chelsea was saying, one of the main reasons we came to in front of the board today is to ask you guys to compel the middle school to allow the students that held the protest to read a 3-paragraph speech that is dedicated to Nevaeh, the young girl that we lost a few months ago. They've been told that they can't do it due to time constraints, first off, and then told that it is idealizing and romanticizing self-harm and mental health. Any educator that says those words to any student should not be an educator. We don't get past mental health by blocking it out and forgetting it and pretending it doesn't happen. It happens to every single one of us. Students, most of all. These kids are about to start the hardest point in their school life of high school. It's not easy. They have exams, they have grades, they have social lives to worry about. That plays a part on their mental health. So I'm asking the school board to urge the middle school to allow them to remember their friend the way they want to remember her. Thank you.
Anyone else tonight? We do still have a couple minutes. All right, Randy, I appreciate it. Oh, yeah. Thank you. And to refine my place in the agenda. All right, and now I have to find this email. The next item on the agenda is a board resignation, which is not news to you folks on the board, but we do have to take our official vote on this matter. How is it way down there? All right. Dear Mr. Downing, I am writing to formally resign my position from the Keene School Board effective Friday, April 25th, 2025. This decision comes as I intend to pursue employment opportunities within the school district, and I want to ensure full transparency and avoid any conflict of interest. It has been an honor to serve on the board, and I am deeply grateful for the opportunity to continue to contribute to our schools and community. I look forward to continuing to support the district in a new capacity. Thank you for your support and understanding. Sincerely, Rebecca Lancaster. So I need a motion to accept the resignation as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Just want to thank Rebecca again for all of her leadership for what would have been, am I doing my math right, 4 years? No.
This was her
Six.
starting her
This
7th
would
year.
have started her 7th year. She really was a great contributor to the board, looking out for our students. She was our Ed Committee Chair for a couple of years. I had the honor of being with her with our most recent KEA contract negotiation, and big loss for us, but a huge gain for our middle school students, as she'll be one of our science teachers, so.
All right, this is one of the odder things we have to do by state law. She can't be on our board anymore because she's accepting employment from the school district, but we still have to hold this vote. So all those in favor? Any opposed? Carries 5-0. Rob and Raleigh and I discussed appointing the interim, and it made sense for us to hold that appointment at the August meeting, as that gives the district time to properly advertise it. The June meeting is in only 3 weeks, and the timeline of things that we have to get in play before then is restrictive. We don't meet in July, so there didn't seem to be a lot of benefit to that. I'm looking around tonight and wishing we'd done this in April, but we didn't. So unless there's an objection from board members, we'll go ahead and hold the interim appointment at the August meeting. All right, Rob, we'll have to coordinate to make sure that's properly advertised so the community fully knows how to apply and when to apply. All right, student representative, do you have a report tonight, or was it mostly just handing things over?
Kind of both, just
Okay.
like a recap of this weekend. Unified Prom and Prom were this past weekend, and both were a hit, so a big thank you to all the chaperones and class councils. Mr. Keene High was moved to the 24th, but it has now been canceled because there are not enough contestants. That's pretty much it.
If you had one more note, I know that you were gonna mention the play that went wrong. That was put on by the drama club last Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. It went on amazingly.
Fantastic.
The drama club did an incredible
They did.
performance. For those who don't know what the play is about, basically our drama club assimilated into being a theater group that was putting on a murder mystery play. the way that they did. I mean, it was a wonderful show, and I know that you were gonna share that, so I forgot to write it down for you.
And then just May 30th is when seniors should pick up their caps and gowns with Miss Armstrong
All right,
from 22.
thanks, Orion. All right, report of the board chair. Here comes Chris Roberts. Yeah. I think in the interest of time, this is going to be a ridiculously long meeting tonight, and anything that I was going to cover in my report is going to be covered in the various discussions we have tonight. There's a lot facing the school district, but a lot of it has to do with the assurances letters that you all spoke about, and with the end of the year celebrations and events that are coming up and in the schools. So I am going to pass on my report tonight. Rob, report of the superintendent.
A lot of stuff in the report. So if you have questions related to any of the information that's in the report, those who don't have the report in front of you, it is available on our websites as well. New Hampshire SAS testing is going on right now. All of our schools are currently conducting the SAS tests, grades 3 through 8. That should be wrapped up before maybe the end of next week, I think at the latest. They should be done. You got the report for Keene High School. Graduation for Keene High is on June 6th. It's a Friday night, so please be aware of that. That is our marquee event. The high school graduation is a marquee event. While we still have celebrations in all of the other schools, that one is definitely the pinnacle of all of the ceremonies that we do run throughout the Keene School District. So happy to answer any questions as it relates to the report. We'll get you a full schedule of all the events for June. It'll be in the June superintendent report. That'll be ready before June 1st. It should be in your drive. Plenty of time so that you can look at that and arrange your schedules.
All right, questions? Jacqueline?
Just a housekeeping, Rob, with the requirements for fire safety drills, all of the various ones. I'm assuming you and Ben and Brian are keeping tabs to make sure that those schools that still have a few entries to complete before the end of the school year are going to get those buttoned up.
That is the intent.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
That is the intent.
Remembering back to about 6 years ago when we reached this point of the year and most schools still had 7 tests to conduct and 3 weeks to do it. All right, standing committees, facilities. Mr. Filio is no longer with us this evening because he has a severe sinus infection. Anyone who was at facilities, was there important information that had to be shared?
No.
Go ahead.
No.
No, yeah. That's what I was thinking. This time of year, there's not a lot going on in that committee. Education, Jennifer.
So we met last Tuesday night, and the bulk of the meeting was the report by Richard Town on the Cheshire Career Center and their enrollment numbers for next year. The Cheshire Career Center gave their report at the education meeting last week, and their enrollment numbers for next year are looking very good, very robust. They are still in need of some good teachers. They're still trying to fill several positions so that we can run full programs. And other than that, I mean, things are going very well there. They have some challenges, but overall, you know, things are looking really good. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, Rob.
Sorry, you've got something else on education. I wanted to jump back to facilities after you're done.
Okay, yes, there is a field trip request from Franklin School. So I think, do I do it on behalf of the Education Committee? I would like to move that we approve the Franklin field trip request to go to Vins in Quechee, Vermont. Vermont Institute of Natural Science.
Yes. Is that a second, Chris?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any concerns on that field trip? All those in favor? Any opposed? Carries 5-0.
Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead, Rob. I remembered something for facilities too, but go ahead.
Yeah, this has to do with transportation. As you know, Tim's been working on ironing out details for transportation, so facilities and ancillary services. I believe if we don't have it by tomorrow morning, by the end of the week, we should have a new contract in place for next year that actually falls within what we anticipated with our budget. So I'm pretty excited about that. Tim and his team have done an amazing job of negotiating with vendors to make sure that we were getting the services that we were looking for and sticking within the budget that we had anticipated. So I wish I could have a better announcement, but I know it's like better than 98% done.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. And I just wanted to relay, I got a question for the facilities director that he has answered for me already about maintaining our field conditions with all of the rain that we've had lately. And he said his crew has been keeping up and the fields are all still playable, a little soggy in the outfield of the ball field, but nothing that's dangerous for the kids or will lead to permanent damage on the part of the fields. All right, Finance Committee, Ms. Headings.
Good evening. A few items. First off, a key one that we just approved with our consent agenda. Marlowe School has requested that their sixth graders be able to attend for the next school year at the middle school. It'll be short-term paying at the non-AREA rate. Currently, Marlowe sends their students to Keene Middle School as part of the AREA beginning 7th grade. They've got, at the moment, about 9 students, but that can always change. But that is what the intent is for next year. Finance Committee unanimously, made a recommendation to the full board for us here this evening. We've got the space, we have the supports in place. And Rob, I don't know if there was anything additional you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, so with regard to Marlowe sending their sixth graders over, they recognized that they couldn't just jump into the new AREA agreement that was just recently adopted until after year 3. So they're fully aware that they're going to pay the full tuition rate for their sixth graders for at least 3 years, and then if they are able to negotiate into the AREA agreement, then they would get that rate thereafter. With that, knowing that is their intent, it didn't make sense to enter a long-term contract agreement, so they just said, yep, we'll pay for that, at least for the next 3 years. And then if they're not successful getting into that, they would look at other options in terms of tuition agreements. But I don't foresee any obstacles for them to petition into the sixth grade AREA in 3 years' time.
Did they pass this on their side? Have they had the vote yet?
Yeah, that was actually how they budgeted, and when their budget passed, that was what their intent was.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thanks. Yeah.
So continuing on, so that's the scoop on Marlowe, and we welcome those incoming sixth graders. They'll add to, the ongoing energy in the building, and again, there's space in place.
Yeah, and it also makes it a little bit more seamless for those students, rather than coming in 7th grade after everybody else has come together in 6th grade. Then they're the new kids coming in 7th grade. They're coming in at the same time. It's new for everybody, and so it'll certainly benefit those students without a doubt.
Exactly. Next up for finance in our drive is multiple fund transfer reports, submissions, if you will. I'll make the motion, and then if there's any questions, we can discuss those. So can I have a motion to approve the budget transfer reports, both dated April 2025 as informational? Thank you, Mr. Roberts. Any questions? I will point out that quite a few of those transfers benefited from really good cost savings. We did not use as much oil, propane, electricity as what was budgeted for. So thanks to Ken Dooley and his department, we were able to then use those funds in other areas of need. Okay.
All right, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carries 5-0. Do you have more? Or is finance
That is
done?
it, sorry.
Finance
Yes,
done, all
thank you.
right. Personnel did not meet tonight. Policy Committee, move on behalf of the Policy Committee to approve policy ACAC, Title IX, Sexual Harassment Policy and Grievance Procedure.
Second.
So this has been, this has been here, this is actually the third month it's been here at this meeting, and policy's had it for that long as well. For a quick refresher, Title IX basically governs equity in schools, and there was a version in place in 2020, and we had policies based on that version. There was a new version of the law passed that year at the federal level, and we spent about 2 years revising our policies to match those, to make sure that we were meeting Title IX and still meeting the needs of our own students. About 9 months ago, the new Title IX was struck down by a federal court. I used to remember where. I think it was in Georgia. Kentucky, thank you. See, I knew it was somewhere. I had a cousin that lives there. So that injunction was effective nationwide and reverted us all back to the previous version of Title IX, unless it was appealed by the federal government. And surprise, they did not appeal that. So we had to revise our policy ACAC back to the previous version of the federal Title IX. And that is, which we did, to make sure that we were in compliance. And then we had legal guidance go through and find all of the other changes that had to happen to bring that policy in line with other federal laws that had passed subsequently that we had captured in our updated Title IX that we lost when we had to revert to the old one. So that's what's in front of you. Frighteningly, we're not done with it, because we are also asking legal and the policy committee to look at this policy and the one that we lost more or less on a line-by-line basis to make sure that we're not inadvertently losing any protections for our own students simply by reverting to an earlier version of the policy, which is, that's all very wonky and is going to take a while. But right now, this is in compliance with the federal Title IX, and any other federal laws that apply to this policy, and still protects the students as best as we can from what's going on at the federal level.
George, students and staff.
And staff, thank you.
Yeah.
I always forget that this one applies to everybody and not just students. Did I get a second?
Yes.
Oh, good. Any comments, questions, requests for clarification on this complicated mess?
Just have
Yeah, go ahead.
some non-material changes
Okay.
that I had sent.
That's
over.
right. And I'll make sure that Shayna has those.
Thank you.
They're just scribble errors, grammatical error type things. Anyone else? Yeah, go ahead, Rob.
I think it's important as you're reviewing policy, as we're reviewing policies, right? That it's important for us to recognize that support and supportive measures for students does not go away with this updated policy. So when we have a Title IX, and Ben left. Anyway, Ben could correct me if I misspeak, but I don't think that I will. When we have a Title IX complaint that becomes investigated, we put supportive measures in for not just the student, but also for the perpetrator too, because they need some level of support that led to the whole complaint in the first place, right? So I know there's a mindset that does exist that somebody did something wrong, let's persecute them and kick them out. But that's not what we do in public education. So what I wanted to just stress is that we still put supportive measures in place, irrespective of the changes that were made at the federal level. That continues. That does not stop. We put supports in for our students when complaints do come forward with regard to Title IX. Actually, to our staff as well.
So it's a bit of a detour, but I think some of the concern with the changes to both Title IX and to this policy involve primarily the newer Title IX that was invalidated expanded the protected classes. So by reverting to the old one, you lose that expansion of protected classes. Now, this district has always operated in a way that is supposed to support all of our students, regardless of whether they're in a so-called protected class or not. The concern that I hear from the community is as the federal protections are stripped away, what are we doing to ensure that those protections will remain in place for our students here when they are no longer backed by federal law? And that's what we'll have to make sure is happening.
Yeah, and that's really the essence behind Title VI, George, is discrimination's not tolerated. And they give limited samples in Title VI, but our practice in the district goes beyond the examples that are included in Title VI. And we're pretty mindful and we're pretty conscious about that, and we're making sure that we're not discriminating access for any student and access for any person who wants to be employed in the district for that matter either. We get a pool of applicants for a position. The charge that is expected of us is to get the best possible candidate, and that's what we're doing. Regardless of any other characteristics or qualifying characteristics, we want the best for our students, no matter what, and that's what we do. So that practice has been pretty standard. You know that because we've had positions that we've had to leave open because the pool didn't meet that expectation. And Andy Stroud is a perfect example. That position was open for 15 months before we found the person that we felt was the best for that position. There was a time, I think she's still in the back of the room, but before Kate, her position was open for a year before we found somebody that was going to be the best for the position. So we're pretty intentional about hiring the best and making sure we're getting the best. Our principals are really diligent about making sure they're getting the best, regardless of any other characteristic. They want whoever is going to be the best for the job that's being advertised to work with our students, from the folks in the cafeteria to the folks who are cleaning our buildings, to the folks who are coaching our sports, to the teachers in our classrooms. I mean, everything, we want to get the best. That's what we want. If we don't, it makes our jobs harder, and it's really not providing the students what we're looking for. So appreciate that.
Thank you, Rob. Chris?
I think you were hitting on it. With a lot of times people look at some of these like Title IXs and other ones as, oh, this is what we got to follow. As long as I've been in the board, there's a bunch of times where, no, this regulation is our floor. That's the minimal acceptable practice. And it may be a bad analogy or whatever. I kind of view it like when you talk about a hate crime. While we're talking about a hate crime, it's still a crime that was committed, and we have to address it, and we have to address it whether it's under Title IX or discrimination or whatever, or assault. So while we're worrying about the adjective, the school district is always taking care of the noun.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris. All right, anything else on policy ACAC? All those in favor? Any opposed? Carries 5-0. Move on behalf of the policy committee to approve policy IJOA, field trips and excursions.
Second.
All right, the only change in this policy at this time is, you get a theme here? They all keep coming back. This policy has served us fairly well for a while. We've done some tweaks in it concerning accessibility to students, concerning making sure that field trips are educational. With the advent of the mini buses over at the school that allows a lot more, especially at the high school, basically class-level field trips planned on a much shorter notice. This policy is becoming unwieldy. The high school is looking, and the middle school as well, has been looking to get field trips approved in a time frame that doesn't fit how frequently we meet. We asked our lawyer to look into it, and he came back to us and said there's actually nothing in state law that says any field trip has to be approved by the board. So we're looking at completely revamping the way that we maintain some oversight over what's happening with our students on field trips. And in the meantime, this change to the policy removes the requirement that out-of-state single-day field trips need prior approval from the board. Basically, it makes them at the same level as in-state same-day field trips. There was a question directed to me as to, I guess the Education Committee discussed differentiating between excursions and field trips. And so there was a question directed to me why policy didn't pick that up. We, again, talked with our legal counsel about that, and he said from a legal distinction, there is no distinction. If the kids are leaving the building under school authority, under school approval, it's a field trip regardless of what we call it or what the purpose of the trip is. So for now, we're not going to pick that up. We do have some bigger goals regarding field trips. That's mostly going to move it out of policy and putting it into building administration hands, which should make it much less cumbersome for everybody involved. But in the meantime, we're looking to do this to at least free up some time from our teachers and administrators. Concerns? Questions? Tired of this policy? All those in favor? Opposed? 5-0. In your drive for second read, for first read is policy JICK, pupil safety. This and several other policies are coming up again as a result of changes to Title IX and to protective classes. Right now, the only changes are the ones that are mandated by the changes to federal and state law, but we are planning to look at that again. We gave some homework to legal counsel for next month's policy committee, so we'll be looking at that with a closer eye again. This becomes one of those policies where it's a balancing act between the accuser and the accused, the victim and the perpetrator, and making sure that everybody's rights are protected and that the school remains a safe space for everybody. It's always been a challenging policy to work with, so that's what we'll have to look forward in policy next week. All right. School liaisons. Keene High School. Raleigh has escaped us to go to the Keene High School to go to the spring instrumental concert, which is happening tonight. The spring vocal concert is happening next Tuesday. We are moving into, I'm just going to really run down quickly the calendar for the end of the year because we're coming up on the senior celebration week. So May 28th, next Wednesday, is the Career Center's Scholarship Night. That is an excellent ceremony. It's the completion ceremony for all of our seniors in the Career Center programs. It really highlights the sense of community and connection that those students build with each other and with our surrounding community. It's a pretty amazing ceremony. Baccalaureate is a senior event on June 1st at 4 p.m. Cindy, where is that located this year? St. James Church, 4 p.m. Thank you. A special recognition night is June 3rd. Scholarship night is June 4th. That is over at the high school. That is another amazing ceremony. This district and surrounding community gives out several $100,000 worth of scholarships. And it's to a broad array of students in the graduating senior class. And it's really amazing to see these kids recognized for what they've done and hear about some of their plans moving forward. The Salmagundi, which is our yearbook, the Salmagundi ceremony is on June 5th. And then graduation is June 6th at 6 p.m. That is rain or shine. If it is hopefully not raining, but if it is, that's an indoor ceremony. So that is the time and date, and it is set. So we are closing in on the end for our seniors' journey, which is very exciting. Last day of school is June 18th. And I have to give the disclaimer that it is subject to change due to snow days, even though it's May. We have had snow in late May and early June, so it does happen. But we're pretty much set on that being the last day of school, and that will also be the Achievement Day celebration for the Keene Middle School. The various elementary schools have other dates for their ceremonies. Rob, I don't have in front of me, when is the continuing ed ceremony? That's coming up too.
It's this Thursday.
Ed, you mean?
Yeah.
It's in 2 days.
2 days, thank you. I knew it was this week. All right, and the other thing I feel I should mention for the high school is registration for the Early Start College courses. Summer 25 and Fall 25 registration opened on March 24th. So any of our students interested in that should look into that. Cheshire Career Center, Jennifer.
Cheshire Career Center had their step-up day, May 16th, where the incoming students for next year from Fall Mountain and Monadnock came to sit in and do activities in several of the different programs. So that was exciting as they all got to, a little taste of what's to come. On May 21st at 6 p.m., the National Technical Honor Society induction will be happening. I believe that the first class was inducted in September, and now the second class will be inducted this year for next year. So that is something exciting as well. Scholarship awards on May 28th, as I think George had mentioned. And they are going to host the second CTE signing day on May 30th, where everybody, all of the graduating seniors get to pose in front of a little banner that says either what company they're going to be working for next year or what school they'll be attending next year, and get their picture taken. And the parents come, and it's a nice way that they get to show off what they're going to be doing next, and to celebrate their accomplishments. So, as I mentioned earlier, there is some challenges with their staffing situation for next year right now, but they are diligently working on filling those positions, and that's all.
Yeah, thanks, Jennifer. Middle school, Paige.
So at the middle school, they just got back from the 8th grade field trip to Washington, D.C. It was very successful. 196 students went. Mike Smith was a runner. The picture is so big that if you run really fast, you can be in it twice, which is very exciting. 5th graders are in the process of flying up for visits and being guided around by former students from their elementary school. Welcome to KMS for parents and students is happening on May 29th at 6:30 p.m. Achievement Day will happen on June 18th at 1:30 p.m. And cluster formation will start taking place over the summer. In terms of hiring at KMS, they've had 10 open positions for next year, and all but 3 have been filled. They're doing well on hiring, and I did hear that the assistant principal has been hired, and we're awaiting official press release before we give any more information on that, but we're all excited.
That is true, and it is coming.
Okay, good. Good. We're excited because Mike was mentioning, Mr. Smith was mentioning that he has some plans to work with the building schedule and focus on intervention, and the new assistant principal will be very helpful with that. I wanted to comment on climate at KMS because I've heard from a number of teachers, principals, administration, students, all non-solicited, amazing stuff going on at KMS. Some of the quotes I hear, it's got the strongest positive climate and culture since Mike Smith became the principal. The adults at the school just wrap their arms around the students. The vibe is so positive, it's palpable. Great teachers have been at the school for a long time. There's not a lot of turnover. And Mike Smith really gives the students boundaries that they crave. The vibe and environment at KMS is so positive, caring, and inclusive. It really feels like home. And I just wanted to share some of those great stuff that I've heard about KMS.
All right, thank you, Paige. Franklin, Jacqueline.
I apologize, no report this month. I've not had an opportunity to connect with.
Fifth grade celebration, June 17th at 5:30 on the blacktop outside the school.
All right, Fuller is Randy. Randy has left to deal with his sinus infection. Rob, why don't you do the 4 elementary dates?
Fuller's fifth grade celebration is June 11th, 6 o'clock. They usually do it in the back of the school. Wheelock is June 12th at 5:30 on the playground. And Simon's is June 13th at 7 o'clock on the playground if weather allows. Otherwise, it'll be indoors.
Yeah, thank you. All right, Simon's school is me for the time being. I did have a chance to chat with Susan Grover. I've not had a chance to get into the school yet, which I hope to do in the next couple weeks before the school closes for the year. She noted that the 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade students are working on the state assessments, which should be done soon, and then the entire school has to do their Ames Web, which should be done hopefully in a couple weeks. On April 14th, this is actually kind of exciting. 22 Simons students participated in the 4th grade water science fair, so that's about a third of their 4th graders participated. Simons' 1st and 2nd place winners moved on to the New Hampshire State Fair on May 8th in Rochester, and both of those students placed at the state level. Reed Connell won 2nd place in New Hampshire, and Quinn Vaith won 3rd place in New Hampshire. So that's 2 of the top 3 places. Simons in general and Keene have traditionally done strongly at the state water fair, the science fair for 4th graders. So it's good to see that that tradition is continuing. Stonewall Farm is working with 1st grade students at Simons to plant vegetable and herb gardens. In the fall, when these students are in 2nd grade, they will work with Stonewall Farm again to harvest what they have planted, kind of continuing their attachment to hands-on learning over there. Simons PTA hosted a spring fling dance on the evening of May 9th for students of all ages. And then on the 17th, Simons partnered with Antioch College to host an all-day event, the In Bloom Conference. This was for educators from around the region participating in a full day of learning. Breakfast and lunch were served. Simons teachers Jess Arrow, Peter Siegel, and Chris Kennedy were 3 of the presenters at this conference. And as Rob just mentioned, 5th grade graduation is scheduled for June 11th. And also Simons Circus is on June 13th. Wheelock, Dylan is not here tonight. JD, Keene Community Ed. That's got me listed. Chris, I think we were asking you to do that. Do you have a chance to talk with anybody yet? I know we just gave that to you like 2 weeks ago.
No, I've been down in warm weather for the past week and a
Yeah,
half.
that's a good choice.
I can
And-
just do a brief one on community ed.
Yeah,
They're
go ahead.
preparing for their ADP graduation, the Adult Diploma Program graduation, which will be Thursday, 7 o'clock at the middle school. If you have not been to one of these ceremonies, I highly encourage you to at least attend one. They've been facilitating high-set tests this week and, got students coming in to earn what we used to know as the GED. It's now the high set, so their folks are taking the actual tests to earn their high school diploma or equivalency of a high school diploma. That's been going on this week, and they are continuing to, they're starting their pre-apprentice program, which will help set the pathway forward to folks who want to go into an apprenticeship regardless of the trade. So it's a pre-apprentice program, will begin on June 2nd, and it will benefit students who participate not only in getting them ready for whatever apprenticeship they really want to get into, whether it's electrical or plumbing or construction or carpentry, I should say. It'll prepare them for that. They'll also come away with like an OSHA certification. $500, 3 nights a week, and it ends at the end of August. So it runs from beginning of June to the end of August.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. NHSBA, we don't have a liaison right now. They have mostly been wrapped up in providing us legislative updates on all sorts of things. The training schedule for the coming year should be coming out soon, so if anyone's interested in the NHSBA trainings, you should watch for those emails. Paige, are you getting emails from them yet? New Hampshire School Board Association?
I am, but to my personal email, because I had signed up before I have my school email.
All right, we'll make sure that Shannon's got you added to the list for,
Because I also didn't get those change.org.
okay. All right, I'll make sure that, I'll forward the recent ones that we've gotten, and I'll make sure Shannon gets you on their list for board members for Keene. We also have an update from them regarding the assurances letters, but we'll deal with that when we hit that on the agenda. SAU 29, the board meeting schedule is in your drive. There's a couple of meetings coming up. Obviously, the superintendent evaluation we're doing tonight is part of the SAU schedule. The annual meeting was scheduled for May 14th, and it basically slipped everybody's mind until it was too late to pull a quorum together. So that's been rescheduled for the end of the month. Do you remember the date, Rob?
29.
Thank you. May 29th. That makes next week very busy because Wednesday is the AREA meeting, which you're all welcome to go to as board members. You're not required to. I will be at it representing Keene. That is the meeting at which the other 11? How many AREA towns are there now?
10 including Keene.
10 including Keene. So the other 9 towns will be electing the town reps to those committees at that time. And they may be the same ones that we have now, or they might be new people. And the advisory is meeting April 30th, no.
Same
Same
night.
day, yeah.
Same night.
We
So
tied those meetings together, and that will be when the board chairs finish the superintendent evaluation. So this is a busy time of year for the SAU. All right, old business. Rob, I did not go over this agenda well because it says none and general assurances. They cannot be simultaneously true. All right, I know there's only a few people left waiting to hear this part of the meeting, and I have to briefly disappoint you. We have legal guidance from Adam Caseta that we can't share in public, so we have to recess 5 minutes, 8 minutes? 5. Yeah, 5-minute recess for the board and the superintendent to go over the legal guidance, and then we will come out and resume this meeting. So if the 5 of us and Rob could head into the back room really briefly. Yeah.
Rebecca's no longer on the board, so she won't take it. So it's only Raleigh and Rebecca.
All right, 10 minutes, not 5. Reconvening, regular board meeting. Can I have, so this is the general assurances discussion that was postponed from last month. Can I have a motion to approve the general assurances to open discussion?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.
Can I just make a recommendation that we approve the May 20th version?
Oh, thank you, yeah,
Of
that's
the
important.
general assurances, because there was a previous version that came out that was amended today.
Thank you, Rob, that's a good correction. We really don't want to miss that one. All right,
Sorry. The motion is to authorize the chair to sign the general assurances. You don't get to approve them. You can authorize the chair to sign or not sign.
That's what I thought I heard.
Yeah.
all right. All right, quick refresher. The general assurances is a 19-page document from the state that essentially says we will comply with state and federal law for the coming year in order to continue receiving state and federal monies, mostly administered through various grant and title laws. It becomes tricky because reason the document is 19 pages is it lists a whole bunch of specific things that we are saying, yes, we are going to do this, yes, we are going to do that. And initially, this set of assurances included both the executive order regarding trans students, called something inane like protecting women in society or something ridiculous like that. And, hang on.
I've got them right here.
Yeah, I do too. I just have to.
So the first one that you were referencing was Executive Order 14168, defending women from gender ideology extremism and restoring biological truth to the federal government. That was issued on January 20th. The other one was Executive Order 14151, ending radical and wasteful government DEI program and preferencing. That was also issued on January 20th.
And then there's a third one as part of that one from the Harvard lawsuit referenced on April 3rd, but it's still
Correct.
part of the same thing. And there's some other changes from last year to this year. Very importantly, just today, the DOE pulled back any reference to those two executive orders and that lawsuit. They removed them, X'd them out of this document. Signing this document no longer says that we will comply with either of the executive orders or the provisions stated in the lawsuit against Harvard. And that is why state legal had recommended waiting until this meeting to sign off on this document because they wanted to hear the result of a pending lawsuit. And basically what happened is the State Department of Education blinked. So that changes the tenor of this conversation to a degree. Importantly, they did change some other wording in this document, and we did get legal to look at this line by line for us. Obviously, that legal guidance itself is protected information, but the basic conclusion is the various references to executive orders are irrelevant, and most of the other wording changes are also irrelevant because ultimately what we're saying is, yes, we are going to follow the law, and none of the laws have changed. Chris and I have talked about this, and Chris spoke about this publicly at the last meeting. At some point, the laws themselves may change, and that changes the nature of this conversation. Because at the end of the day, this has to be about our students and our staff. there's been a lot of progress in equality, in protecting our students, in recognizing our students and staff. We're not willing to go backwards. So the important discussion to have here tonight is, does this document represent that point? Or are we okay with what this one is asking us to do? And it's just a reminder that we have to be wary about what this current state government may try and ask of us. Rob, before I open this up to discussion, does this, as presented, affect what we're doing in this district?
So the short answer is no. In either form, it would not change what we are doing, what we intend to do, and how we have been doing it, and how we continue to intend to be doing it. Our students are the most important thing, and the inclusion of those two executive orders, as we discussed with legal counsel, cannot supersede what's written in law. So an executive order cannot change a law. Just to be very clear about that. So if the president wrote an executive order that said, hey, listen, capital murder is no longer a crime, he can't do that, because capital murder is still a crime, regardless of his executive order. And his executive orders would have been contrary to any law as it relates to discrimination and equal rights for students and for staff. So that's the long answer. It does not change. It absolutely changes nothing that we are doing and in our practices that we are doing. Our students belong in our schools, regardless of any qualifying characteristic, descriptor, or anything else that gets put on that.
All right, thank you. Brian, I'm going to paraphrase something that you said in the meeting the other day, because I didn't warn you that I was going to ask you to talk about this. So I'm only going to ask you to talk about this if I screw it up. Rob and Raleigh and Brian and Ben and I talked about this fairly extensively when we were doing our agenda planning for this meeting, because this is a serious topic, and we have been bouncing this around a number of different ways to make sure that we're doing the best we can for our students with some fairly complicated asks from various parties. Brian was having to talk with a family about this letter and why the superintendent went ahead and signed the accompanying letter that came, a month ago, give or take. And he was explaining that the basic consequence of not signing these is not guaranteed, but potentially losing the state and federal funding that we receive, which is a fairly significant portion of our budget. And if you've sat through our budget meetings, you know there's nowhere to cut left in our budgets. The most likely effect for students would be the loss of support services that are not guaranteed by law. In other words, we would be dropping to the absolute minimum of what we're providing our services because we wouldn't have the money to do anything else. So in that context, and with the fact that currently they're not requiring us to do anything different than we are doing because we were already in compliance with all the relevant laws, not signing hurts our students more than signing. How did I do? Okay, thank you. All right, I'm done soapboxing. Opening for questioning and discussion. Chris, go.
That the two executive orders are out, instead of making a gross mess, it just kind of makes it palatable. because people don't read whole documents. People take little snippets. People don't understand an executive order is there just to make an order be a law to be conducted more efficiently, not changing a law, not creating a law. And like you said, there's a line there, and I just found some of the stuff in some of the way people are talking, some of the way that they're trying to change things totally un-American. It isn't, we have made so many changes, and some of these changes gave me and a lot of other people opportunities that they wouldn't have. When I graduated from Keene State and I went in the Marine Corps, 18,000 officers, only 200 of them were of color. Women, as soon as you got pregnant, you got thrown out. That has changed because we've given people the opportunity. And I think it's really important that we come across and let people know we're here to support them. We're going to do what's best for them. We're going to make decisions that we can live with. And right now, it isn't worth biting the bullet on this one because it would hurt the people that we're trying to help the most. And for a bunch of these people, the kids that we're helping, we could be breaking the poverty cycle, we can break in the abusive family cycle, things that would benefit them and benefit the community. We as adults, both political parties, shouldn't be arguing over stuff that benefits our children and gives them the potential to have a better life.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. Other comments? I know, Jen. Yeah.
I'm thinking just for clarification and for the public, we got our guidance from our legal, but I can't remember what the group or the organization of attorneys were at a higher level that you said also weighed in. It wasn't NHSBA.
No, the New Hampshire Council of School Attorneys.
Thank you.
Hang on, I may have that. In my wrong email. Just looking at the NHSBA update, which realistically only says, yes, they've removed the executive order stuff. They didn't remove some of the other objectionable language, which I will get to in a second. Nope, that's not it. There we go. All right, they initially said, hold on any pending litigation if you can, which we did, and we saw the result of that. And at the end of the day, anything that the assurances are asking for that is in counter to state law is not enforceable. And that therefore they didn't see a particular issue with signing off unless you were concerned with state law itself. Which, I don't know, we might be, but I guess I'm not ready to take that battle. Yeah.
So this is effective from the time we sign it until
It would be for the 25-26 school year.
25-26 school year.
And
And the state legislative session is from January to June next year. But nothing, no state laws really actually could change because they could not pass next year until
I don't foresee anything that's currently being proposed with our state legislature that we would have to be concerned about. What next legislative season, we'd have to pay attention to that as well.
I might take issue with that statement, but, yeah, the assurances actually outline the things that we're agreeing to.
As it relates to this.
Yeah, so there's not anything that the state could do that would affect what's in these assurances. It does say we'll adhere to Title IX, Title VI, et cetera. Federal government could change those laws, but they take even longer to do stuff than we do. And, you know, that's kind of what we're saying when we have to start watching out for state law and federal law and lines that we need to watch out for. Some things that were changed in the wording other than the executive orders, which were very attention-grabbing, but as we've referenced a couple times, were also probably illegal to include in the first place, which is why the DOE decided not to have that battle. They've dropped entirely one of the sections called the General Education Provisions Act. They just completely removed it from assurances. But it doesn't actually relieve us from meeting the General Education Provisions Act because that's still in state law. I assume that they dropped it in hopes of changing that eventually. So that's probably something to keep an eye on. There's something in here about gun-free zones. Why can't I find it?
George, I can get it for you if you want.
Section B9.
Yep, thank you. Remove the reporting requirement for expulsions related to violation of the gun-free zone. But again, the law didn't change, so leaving it out of assurances doesn't really mean anything. We still have to do what the law tells us to do. And there's a lot of cases that's the same. I think the important one, and I mentioned this in non-public as well, the assurances require the establishment of a procedure to permit disclosure of personal identifiable information from student records. Now that's important because FERPA, the federal law regarding student information, says that we can't release that information to anybody, with obvious certain exceptions. And the end of this line in the assurances says, in a manner that complies with FERPA. So they're trying to make it seem like they're ordering us to release personal identifiable information, presumably to build a database to target people we don't know. But because they included the line, which they had to, in a manner that complies with FERPA, what we're actually signing on is we will continue to follow FERPA. And this is why I'm glad we did this legal line-by-line review. It's the kind of legal trickery that is liable to slip past us, even if we're reading it line by line, that someone that's trained in education law is going to spot. Yeah.
So to kind of give you an example of how we would write a procedure that would permit the disclosure of personally identifiable information that complies with FERPA, it would be, all right, our procedure is with parent permission. That's our procedure, which is already in our policy, which is already required by FERPA. So we will release personally identifiable information with parent permission, which is a requirement of FERPA, which is in our policy. Now, to be clear, FERPA goes into a lot deeper releasable information, such as directory information, which is why you have publications like yearbooks and programs at plays and roster things at sporting events. So students' names and grade levels is our directory information. That is releasable under FERPA. We're allowed to release that to military recruiters when they become age for that as well. fact, we're required to do that. So there are some exceptions without going into a 2-hour discussion on FERPA. I think that one that was pointed out is, like George said, weirdly worded, but the key phrase is complies with FERPA. So,
Yeah. Listen, I don't like the games that the state's trying to play with us, that they're doing with these letters, with these assurances. I think it needs to put us on notice that there's going to be more gamesmanship coming. Now, Frank Edelblut's term is almost up, right?
so there is a governor and council meeting tomorrow. We're expecting that there could be a nomination from the governor tomorrow. If not, they don't meet for another month. So 10 o'clock tomorrow, if you've got nothing else to do, tune into the governor, tune into that meeting.
I don't have high hopes. Mr. Edelblut has done lasting damage in his role. I don't have high hopes for who Governor Ayotte will appoint to replace him. So I think that what's happened here needs to put us on notice that we need to be very, very careful interacting with the State Department of Education for the near future in order to make sure that we're continuing to do the best for our students and our staff. But I also think that pulling the references to the 2 executive orders, for me at least, makes this particular vote possible. Anyone else? All right, no further discussion. The motion on the table is to authorize the board chair to sign the May 20th version of the general assurances. Those in favor? Those opposed? Carries 6-0. All right, meeting schedule for 25-26 is in your drive. Raleigh has already pointed out a mistake, or 2, yeah. 1, 2, 3, yeah. Can I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second. Do you want us to cite what those are so they're in the
I've got them right here.
minutes? Okay.
November 11. All right.
Yeah, that's a holiday.
Yep.
That's a third one,
January 11.
is January. So, all right,
Start from the top.
yep. No,
August.
what's wrong with August? Can we miss
It
one
had
there, too?
2026.
Oh, yeah, all right, so the very first line, the August 12th meeting is 2025. The November 11th meeting will obviously not happen. Probably we just won't have a November meeting unless we have special business that we have to deal with. But we'll address it as we get closer. We're gonna strike it from here.
Well, no, November the 10th is a Tuesday, so we can still have our November meeting.
What's going on?
No. November 11 is a Tuesday this year.
No. Oh, sorry. I was jumping ahead looking at all the 2026 dates. Sorry. It's been a long day.
All right, so we're gonna strike that one. Rob, we will discuss as we get closer to November whether we need to steal one of the committee dates instead. But there's no sense making that decision now.
Yep.
The January 3rd meeting is 2026, not 2025.
Same with the 11th.
And except that the 11th is actually the 10th.
Yep.
It should be the 10th of January.
Yep. That doesn't look right
Yeah,
to me.
Saturday, January 10th, 2026.
Yep, oh yeah, there it is. All right, and I think that's it. I think everything else is okay. Yeah, go ahead.
The January 20th meetings is a little confusing, and maybe that's because there's the public session.
Yes,
So the regular board meeting's at 7 PM, and then public,
no, it's, the board meeting will start at 6:30 as it always does.
okay, where's
And then we'll recess at 7 o'clock to the public hearing.
Okay,
And those,
okay,
it's, yeah, there's not breaks there where there should be breaks.
okay. Thank you.
Good question.
Yeah.
And then, the last paragraph says that the meeting starts at 5:30. I'm sorry, the second to last paragraph. Second Tuesday of the month at 5:30.
Yeah, look at that.
Yeah, they start at 6:30.
6:30.
Okay.
Good catch.
Chris, that's a lot of changes. Can we call that scribblers errors, or should we make this one come back?
I'm going to make a motion amendment that we accept corrections as noted.
Who seconded?
I will
Second. Okay.
Somebody seconded. All right, whoever seconded to that too. All right, so now we're voting to accept this as amended. Those in favor? Opposed? All right, so we can get those corrections and get it published. Yep.
We're going to do it twice. We just accepted the amendment.
Oh, yeah.
Now,
Yeah, all right, all those in favor? Opposed? All right, now we're good. Yay. All right, scholarships is on this under new business, just so that people know we're doing this. This is the Keene School Board is authorized to issue a number of scholarships at Scholarship Night. Those come to us in the form of a proposal from the high school. We will actually consider that in non-public because we don't want to announce the names of the scholarship winners early. Superintendent evaluation, likewise, happens in non-public. One of the 3 jobs of a school board prescribed by law is evaluation of the superintendent, and this is our turn to do that. Is there any other business before the board tonight? Seeing none, can I have a motion to go into non-public session in accordance with RSA 91A3 for staff and student personnel?
so moved.
Second.
Jennifer, roll call, please.
Yes.
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 Yes. Thank you. Everyone's left by now because these meetings go for a while, but thank you to everybody who came in person, and particularly those who shared public input tonight. Thank you to everyone watching online and to the administrators who gave their time for us and to the board members who shuffled in and out to keep us with a quorum all night. Public portion of the meeting will now recess for a non-public session. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts. When you told me you were here, I went out to the parking lot and looked at you. We'll use the bigger one.
No, I just wanted to push it to 9.